and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be giving you guys another video after finishing the first semester of college, baby, in a panoramic. Yes, I did that. College freshman, I'm back and I'm ready to tell you guys everything there is to know about going to college as a freshman at NYU and what it's like to do that in COVID, because a lot of you guys have been seeing my Snapchat stories. If you haven't, add me on Snapchat at Marie Tagwell, but here's some cool video to show you what New York is like. So many things that go on. It's crazy. I feel like a completely different person, you know, like small town girl, big town vibes. Just my horizons have changed, my mentality is changed, and I want to tell you guys and bring you guys into what that's like, what that was like for me. So if you would like to see more videos like this, leave a comment below. I asked you guys to send me questions on Instagram and Snapchat, and you guys sent me questions, so I'm just going to be answering that. I'm going to try to keep it short because I talk a lot, but we'll see how that goes. If you guys like acting, New York, college things, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys so much for all the support you've given me. I just cannot believe how much we've grown, and I'm just so happy to be back at this camera making videos. So I'm just not gonna keep going because I hate long intros. Let's get into it. Okay, but first, what do y'all think about the new hair? You dig it? This was my first hair that I did for myself in college. And I guess that's gonna lead me to my first question. Well, this is like a two-part question. Well, I'm gonna start with the first part of the question because it's my favorite part of the question. But my girl, Sarah Gashui, she asked me, what advice do you have for dating in college? Okay, girl, I'm just gonna get into it. Dating in college was completely different than what I expected. There's COVID, so there's a lot of restrictions around how you meet people and where you meet people, where before someone might have noticed you in like a coffee shop or in the library or stuff like that. I've noticed that it's very different. You're often more drawn to people on your floor or people in your dorm because those are the people that you run into in the hallways. And the other thing about college is that people sneak around, and security is very tight in college, so the easiest way to sneak around is when people date someone on their floor or date someone in their dorm, because they can, you know, have access to each other's rooms and go into each other's rooms. There was a lot of that in college. As much as they are strict about corona and stuff like that, you can't catch everything, and so that's something that I saw a lot. For me personally, the first thing that I would say is use dating apps, because one thing that I thought, okay, TikTok had me fooled. TikTok really tricked my brain and made me think that every single white boy wanted his little chocolate melanated sister. And they don't, they really don't. Or if they do, they want the girl who's super duper skinny and who has Eurocentric features. Nothing wrong with Eurocentric features, but it means a girl like me who has a wider nose, bigger lips, but like, so the thing I loved about dating apps is that guys will see what you look like before they already swipe on you, so you already know that you're into them and they're into you. Because I had my heart broken a couple of times because, for example, me and my other melanated sister, we would go around trying to talk to guys, and you could clearly see that guys only wanted to talk to a certain kind of girl, mainly white and Asian girls. No offense to white Asian girls, y'all are beautiful, but when it came to darker skinned sisters, they weren't as interested in it. My roommate had a boyfriend within the first 2 weeks of being here, and my other sweet mate had someone ask for her number, had guys hitting on her all of the time, and I really thought, wow, my ugly but girl, it is not you. Some of these men are just whack. So I love dating apps. You often have to just be careful when you're meeting up with people. I just typically chose a very neutral spot, and what I loved about New York City, there's a lot of open spots, there's a lot of parks, places to sit. Some restaurants were open, and so I'd often meet up with someone there, and then as you get to know them, you know, stuff like that. But it is very hard to actually have the same hookup culture that you would have before, because people can't get into each other's rooms, or people would rent hotels, but that's expensive. So if you are someone who was of the hookup variety, I would like to warn you, I think that there are a lot of restrictions that I feel so jealous. I'm so jealous of the people who have boyfriends with apartments. I'm like, y'all are so lucky. Like, you don't understand, because you could just go chill in an apartment and you didn't have to worry about dealing with NYU security. Her next question was, what's the best and worst part of college so far? Oh my god, that's such a big question. Okay, so college, right? We're here, we're sitting in this new place, this new zone. I moved to college, never having been there before, having been to the city before, never really leaving my parents for a long time. And I have to say, it's the independence. I love being able to do what I want to do. If I want to get up, go study in the library or study in a bookshop, see the city, because New York is such a nice place to go. There is always something to do. That's nice. I love it. It does really suck right now because of Corona, but even with Corona, it's still like a vibrant place, and I love that about it. One of the worst parts about college, I have to say, to be honest, are the people. Every kind of person in New York City. There's every kind of person there, but there are some stuck-up elite people there, and there are some people who will screw you over there, and there are some people who will treat you differently because of your skin there. You think like everyone's gonna have an open mind. No, they don't. Everyone's focused on themselves and worrying about themselves, and you gotta worry about yourself too. So that was definitely not so fun to learn. Okay, so her last question is like, do I like New York, and do I like it? Is it better or worse than Missouri? Oh my god, you should have seen me when I was sitting in the plane just looking over at New York City. It is so beautiful. And I actually have to say that NYU campus is like my least favorite part of New York City. I love leaving the campus in any direction. You just go on and on and on, and it's just so fun. You can walk everywhere pretty much. Like even walking to Times Square, which is like a 40-minute walk, you don't care because you can just like look at all the buildings and everything going on, and there's so much stimulus going on that you don't really notice that walks are super long, and so you can stay healthy very easily. So much juice, so much good food. And I know those are the things that everyone says about New York, but I had never been there before, and it's genuinely opened my eyes up to so much. And so do I like it better than Missouri? Yes, as a city, I do like it better than Missouri. Like, to be honest, there's not much going on in my hometown. I never realized how many local food stores there were, how many different kinds of food I could try, how many different kinds of things I could see. I can only imagine what it was like when it was pre-corona, and hopefully I get to see what that's like in the following year. So Anonymous asks, what's campus life like at NYU? I feel like I'm not qualified to speak on that because we literally don't have a campus life. We don't really have a campus, we just have campus events and campus things. But because of Corona, like a typical day in the life would be getting up, going to classes if you have in-person classes, making plans with friends afterwards, any club meetings, any club events, any dorm events, they're all online. So we would have talent shows that were online, or we would have scavenger hunts that were online. They had these things called speed dating. So for example, ASU, which is the African Student Union, or TISH, which is my department, they would have these speed meetups where you would go on Zoom and you'd meet people in breakout rooms for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then you'd meet another group of people. And that was pretty much the only way you can like really meet people in large groups. I will say though, please don't cancel me or get me in trouble. I'm just trying to be honest with y'all about what the campus was like. There were these things every weekend. They would kind of gather with their friends either in Washington Square Park or Union. Those are the two main parks because they're on either end of the main part of the campus. Depends on where you're looking, but from my dorm, you could go one way to Washington Square Park, the other way to Union. And that's where people could meet people in person and talk to other people or hang out with their friends, kind of socially distanced. Were they always socially distanced? No. Like, it depends on how you went through it. For example, me and my friends, obviously we'd go with masks and avoid the big groups. Not everyone did that, and you can definitely see, like, in the media, like, you'll see Washington Square Park would be packed. Like, especially early on, it was packed, and it was a mixture of students, and it was also a mixture of people from New York. And that was also another way that people met other people. Obviously, that's kind of like the most similar thing to like a party as you would have pre-corona, and that was kind of that in terms of campus life and meeting people. And it kind of sucked, to be straight up with y'all. It's not like every day you could kind of just go up to people and meet them, because even then you don't really want to go up to people because it's like, you know, like, I don't really want to disturb you, or if people are talking in groups, you don't really want to go if you didn't know them, because you kind of want to stay with like your cluster, unofficial, but like the people you hang out with regularly. I will say though, NYU was amazing about dealing with Corona and amazing about dealing with quarantine. Compared to New York City itself, we had a much lower transmission rate of cases. It was like 0.01% or 0.06%. It got to 0.06% when the cases started rising over Thanksgiving, but we had a transmission rate that was so much lower than the rest of the neighboring cities, to the point that like we were supposed to shut down in-person classes if we got over 100 cases, but the governor was like, oh, y'all are fine because we weren't the ones getting cases. And so the people who were causing the cases were, when you would go to Washington Square Park, there would be all of these adults without masks sitting and congregating in these large groups, whereas NYU students typically went out in groups of like 3 or 4 and they had masks on. And we also had a lot of accountability because if someone took a picture of you without a mask, they would report you. Sometimes you would be social distancing and people would still take pictures of you and threaten to report you. So we ended up not taking as many pictures and we ended up not letting people know where we were because we just didn't want to like get in trouble even if we were following the rules. So yeah, that's just kind of what campus life was like as a whole, good, bad, and ugly. Again, my group did follow COVID safety rules, but still like we could see a lot of the stuff that was going on. But all in all, I would say that NYU did do their best to handle COVID. I know this wasn't really related to the question, but I think that's a huge part of like what campus life, so much of campus life was about trying to hang out when there's COVID. Okay, so someone asked, Kayla, she asks, what was your experience like with the red zone for college freshman girls? I hope it wasn't bad. So I guess this is like a plus of going to college when you're in the middle of a pandemic because I really interacted with very, very little seniors. I think the way college used to work before, they were like huge frat parties and you would go and there'd be these freshman girls being invited to party with these seniors and they would take advantage of you. Because it's so isolated and you really don't interact with people, I can't think of a way that I would have met a senior unless it was like on Tinder or I was invited to something where a college senior was there. Like there was no like huge gatherings where there was just people of all classes like in there. What was actually kind of scary were the other freshmen because, for example, there was this one guy, we're gonna call him Brian, rhymes with his name, and he was like, let's say like 5'4", 5'5", and always at Union he would go around, I heard he would like drug girls or give them drinks or give them, you know, whatever to kind of get them to sleep with him, and then he would kind of take advantage of that. And it became so notorious, like every girl knew this guy, every girl had had a run with this guy, had seen this guy, had talked to this guy. It became so notorious that like other guys would step in if they saw him talking to a girl. They would be like, hey man, like you want to help me out over here, or hey man, someone was looking for you over here, trying to get this man away from these girls because he was just constantly looking for new girls to prey on. That was what I would say was kind of scary, but like if you just kind of went with your girls, you know, you had each other's back, that was kind of safe. The other dangerous thing I would say was with Tinder hookups. I personally never did this, but I did have friends who would travel to like New Jersey or travel to Chelsea or travel to Brooklyn to hook up with guys, and I was like, that's really scary because you really don't know him. And I think it's just like keeping safe, making sure you reach out to your contacts and let them know your location. For example, my roommate would constantly check in on me like, hey, like if I was on a date or something, she'd be like, hey, where are you? Are you safe? Are you good? And I'd be like, I'm good. And that was just kind of a way of keeping each other safe. Aditya asks, do you know of any fine Greek cuisine restaurants in this city? I do, actually. It's funny you bring this up, but it's called The Greek. It was delicious. Running in there while I was on a date because I had to pee so bad, so bad. So I ended up running in there and I was like, can you use your bathroom? Like, please, like I'll pay for it. I'll buy something, just please let me use your bathroom, because the one thing about New York City is that there's not that many bathrooms that are open. And the guy was like, yes, of course, use the bathroom. So we went in there, use the bathroom, and then when I came out, we just ordered something. So we ordered this delicious, it was like a soft pastry, a strudel. It kind of tastes like baklava, but it wasn't baklava. There was like another name for it. I wish I could remember the name, but I had that. It was delicious. I also had this like frappe. So if you guys are looking for recommendations of Greek food in New York City, The Greek, it's close to the Hudson River in Manhattan, was delicious. Okay, so Papa Smurf asks, does NYU actually accept waitlisted students? Yes, they do. The reason I know this is because so many of my friends from high school were put on the waitlist for NYU and ended up getting in. One of the girls actually goes now. Another girl got in, but she didn't end up going. I had another friend who was waitlisted and she just ended up not submitting in the extra application. But I think if you get waitlisted, that's actually a really good sign. I think either NYU tries to do this thing where they lower the acceptance rate, or I think a lot of people decline NYU because it is very expensive, and so a lot of people end up not going. A lot of people in my program, a lot of them, I would say like at least a third of them or something, were waitlisted. So waitlists are very common with NYU, and it's actually a very good limited time, there's a very high chance that you can get off the waitlist. Yeah, congrats, honestly. Okay, so my friend Gabe Sheets, he asks, what are your favorite and least favorite things about big city life? I mean, I feel like I am someone who was like born for big city life. Every place you walk by in New York City, there's something to do. So you walk down a street, there's a cool coffee shop, there's a cool deli, there's a cool bookstore. All of these really niche things that you've never just like seen like walking down. Like only certain places back home will have a place that looks even like that. They're all these tiny little buildings that are squished together, so you could spend like a whole day on one part of the city and still not have seen all these cool sculptures, all these cool parks, all these cool, every restaurant and every street has a story and has a really cool story. Everyone here is just so passionate about what they do that they've grown it and they have these stories that they've cultivated, and so you never get bored. I have a list on my phone that's like super long of things I want to see. I just want to have the time to go see it, and so that's what I love. The only thing about big city life is that you can feel lonely, and the best thing I've learned to kind of counteract that or deal with that is learning to love to be alone. I think I explore the city best when I'm alone. One of the last things that I did before coming back home was I went to the Highline Park by myself, and because there's just so much to do, from going to the Highline Park, I went to the Hudson Yard, I walked around the Vessel, then walked back, and from Times Square, I passed all these like little small art galleries, and I went into all these art galleries by myself. At first, I hated doing that. I hated being alone because I think when you're from a small town, you feel like being alone or going to places alone makes you weird. But here in New York City, there's a lot of couples, but there's also a lot of people doing things by themselves, and so that's what I learned to love doing, and I learned so much about myself that I'm so much of a better friend when I do those things alone. But you do feel alone. Everyone's looking out for themselves, everyone is worrying about themselves, so you have to think about yourself too. So I hope that helps, but you have to, in a sense, make your own communities or find your way into communities, and even when you're in those communities, I think people are still very individualistic. Nicole asks, was it hard adjusting living away from home and family? So I don't want to end this video on a sad note, but I do want to be very honest with you guys, because I think social media, and especially the way that I manage my social media, I don't really put a lot of my downs out there because I think that can make me very vulnerable to people who aren't living in my situation, so I don't always talk about this, but oh my god, it's incredibly hard. It's still incredibly hard. And I think that COVID just adds another layer to that. So for example, because of COVID, it's obviously harder to meet people, but there's also the constant threat of quarantining where you might have to be in a room by yourself, eating NYU food all day, and you don't really know anything. It's very scary. You're constantly worried about who you're going to be hanging out with or who you're going to be safe with. You know what I mean? Who you're going to be quarantining with. What are you going to be doing? It can be very hard managing everything, like managing finances. You have to really be on top of it by yourself, looking out for yourself. And I think the biggest thing is that you don't have those people you can trust the way you did before. I mean, I definitely had problems at home. I know a lot of people coming here had problems at home. A lot of us found ourselves having to be in situations where the only people we could really trust and talk to about certain situations were our parents, were our moms, were our stepdads, were our dads, were our brothers, were our sisters, because those are the only people who were our family and who had those ties to us. Often you have to rely on your family as a resource, even if you have a really complicated relationship with your family, because you just can't trust the people out here. And I did really well here, and I adjusted to a lot because obviously I'd never been to the city before, I had never left my family before, I had never been to an in-person school before, so managing all those things was extremely overwhelming. My first day out of quarantine, my friend was like, Marie, you were literally shaking because like the nerves and the overwhelm of the city and the people and the things to maintain were just so much. And I ended up breaking down, crying, sobbing in front of my dorm at 1 a.m. to my stepdad on the phone like 3 weeks after moving in. I just couldn't hold it in. So I wish what someone had told me is that like, you are going to feel alone and you're going to, you know, cry a lot. You're going to feel all these emotions that you never felt, but you are going to be so much stronger because of it and have so much more of a trust with yourself if you can stay with yourself. And if you need to go back home, do it. Like, you don't have to like be strong. This is about you and about your experience, and you might have like just weeks and days of just not having anyone to talk to, but that up and down is, I guess, just being exposed to real life, and you do learn a lot from that. So that is it for these videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like more videos, please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I just really appreciate you guys and all the support you've been giving me on my social media and on this page. I love you all so much. I will be continuing to